Okay, sewing friends, you get to see the delights of the bin and the ladder today. Right, I am hopping on to do a different kind for me of Sequin Girly Creates video for you today. I've had quite a lot of requests to start sharing with you how I'm putting the detail into my sews and how I'm hacking my patterns. I'm on a mission to help you and me save money and not keep buying unnecessary patterns. So that means we've got to hack what we've got. It's great because we know what we're sewing with, but we can play with it. So today I'm going to take you along as I create a ruffle collar, how I add piping and yokes. I'm going to do 3 sort of hacky bits together in this. If you like it and you want me to do more of a sew along, pop a comment down below and let me know. So I'm going to take the Myosotis and I'm going to hack it into a blouse today. I'm going to take the Patina blouse and hack it into a dress again. And I'm going to take the Paola Workwear Jacket, the free pattern from Fabric Store, and I'm going to turn it into a blouse, and I'm going to add a yoke as well. Whew, that's a lot. Don't worry, I'll hold you by the hand, I'll take you through this, I'll put timestamps so you can jump and move around, but let's get started. Okay, so what I'm doing is laying out the back piece. You'll have just seen me cut out the front piece, and what you'll have noticed is there's like a gap, because even when I make the Myosotis dress, the bodice is too short. So at the lengthen and shorten line, I cut it. Now normally I only need to do about 1.5 inches, but because I'm making this as a blouse only, I've decided to go quite a lot longer, because there's nothing worse than not being able to tuck it in properly. So I actually did 5 inches. So the first thing I'm going to do is bring it down a bit, because I'm going to need an extra bit for the yoke. So I'm just going to weight down this piece here, and then I'm going to measure 5 inches up here to do the same as the front. So that'll be here. Just weight that down. Someone asked me if I use pattern weights or pins. I use pattern weights because it's easier for me to shift things about like this. If I pin it and then I've got to change it, I get frustrated. So I've got to try and get that in line with that. I use my eye, some people don't, but I'm pretty much of a go by eye person. Right, and then do the same at that side there, just to check we've got it the same. Yeah, okay. So because I want to do a back yoke on this pattern, I need to fold down the piece that will be the back yoke, but remember I need 1 centimetre extra more than I would need, because of the fact that it needs a seam allowance. You need to remember that it is deeper than you would want. So we're just going to weigh this down, and now you can see why I've left this spare fabric here, because that's where I'll cut the yoke. So I'm just going to cut this bit out. Okay, so I've cut the main back piece out, but of course I now need to cut my yoke out. Now I've got a choice here. Do I do 2 yokes, like on the Patina blouse, the Bodice shirt, etc., where you've got the inside and the outside bit, or just the one? I am going to do 2, but I've got to think about the fact that this is... Okay, I've realised I've done a mistake anyway. I should have cut this on the fold rat, and it's a pretty tight back. These things happen. Right, so what I'm going to do is use this piece here to do the yokes, because you need to cut the yoke on the fold, and I'm going to need 2 yokes so I can use this fabric. It won't be wasted. You might be like, oh my goodness, she's cutting them the opposite way on the grain. Don't worry, everything will be fine. So let's line that up with the edge there. This one. Now this line here was where I folded it, so I need to go 1 centimetre deeper than that to get the seam allowance. So that when I cut it, I have included a seam allowance. Let's put some more weights on there. Right, so okay, nothing wasted in my land of mistakes there. So we're making 2 yokes, so we can use the burrito method. Let's fold it back up, cut across here. There we go, okay. So now I've cut out 2 yokes, which are here. They're not the most deepest of yokes, but that's up to you to decide what you want. So I'll put those in the bag. So now I'll cut out what I should have cut out in the first place, which was the bit on the fold. So I have cut out the back and the front pieces and the yoke. I'll need to do the facing pieces, which are these bits here. Remembering to do the 5 inches extra on there. And then I'm going to cut out the neck ruffle as well. Okay, so the next one I'm going to do is take the Paola Workwear Jacket and make a blouse with it. So they're big pieces, and this that I'm wearing here is a cropped version anyway, so wouldn't want the full length of this. Need to decide where to fold that up, so I hold it up to my body just to see, and yeah, I want it tuckable in, so that fold there is good. I'm going to ignore all these pocket designs on here. So folding that up. Now, this is the front, and you can see that's pretty wide. So I just need to decide whether I want it that wide. I've made the jackets, and again, see, that's the back, and it's pretty generous. So I'm just going to have a think about that for a minute. I will then have my facing piece, which again needs to remember to fold up. And then, of course, the collar. So I'm just going to try on and the jacket and to see how roomy it is in terms of if it was a shirt. Okay, so where am I? You can't see me, what's happened there. Okay, so I tried it on, and this is the same jacket shortened as well. And do you know what? I feel that as an oversized shirt, I'm quite happy, because I can always be a bit more generous with the seams if I find it just a bit too big. But what I did, which is really important to say actually, is I did do a narrow shoulder adjustment. So you can see here, all this business here, I did a narrow shoulder on the front and back. Is take our front piece. Now, by the way, with both of these methods I'm showing, if you don't like doing the folding, you could trace the pattern, and then you could like do your cutting and that there. I don't like to do that. I'm quite happy with doing some folding. So I'm just having a look. I want it about here. Well, I'll go with that line there then, shall I? Yeah, we'll go there. So I'm folding that down, remembering that if that's the yoke I want, I need to give a centimetre more seam allowance. Fold up but shift up because you've got to have the centimetre of seam allowance. So I'm just going to zoom in for you. So here you can see there's two folds. One is the actual yoke that I want, but the other includes the 1 centimetre seam allowance. I'm just going to fold that up out of the way. So let's move. Okay, so the final part before I take you to the stitching part is deciding on the piping / binding for those joins. Now I'm going to take you to the sewing stage and I'll show you sort of how I sew those bits together, and then of course I'll take you to the finished, fingers crossed. Okay, so here we go on the details now. So this is the Myosotis hack where I've created a yoke for the back. So I followed the burrito method that I used with the Patina blouse, and I've stitched on the inner and outer yoke. And what you've got to do now is work out which one of those needs this attached to it. This is the piping that we're going to use. So when you flip it round, what we're going to think about is the fact that that one is the outside and the other one becomes the inside. So this is the one, this guy here is the one that we've got to attach this to before we attach the rest of the back piece. Okay, so what I have done is fix the bias binding about 2 or 3 centimetres away from the edge, because what I don't want is it all disappearing into the seam allowance. Now I've chosen to use normal bias binding because I don't want to use piping and have that really thick edge. I just want that tiny line of colour, and bias binding does that perfectly. So now I'm going to stitch this to just the one layer of back yoke. Okay, so it's stitched on. What I've done now is folded it over and clipped it down. So underneath there are the stitches. Let me unclip that so you can see. So there's the stitch where I've stitched it down. So I've now folded this over and clipped it down, because now I'm going to take the back bodice piece, put it this way round and fix it onto here and then stitch it on. Okay, when it comes time to stitching it, I'm actually going to flip this over now so I can see the previous stitching line. That means if I follow that line, I know exactly how the binding is with that. If I flip this over a minute, hang on, you can see then how much is going to poke through now. So it needs a good press, but I'm really happy with how that looks. And get to the neckline on this one, and I'll come back and show you how to do the ruffle neck, but in the meantime I'll do the other binding on the other ones to show you that too. So for the front of the Paola Workwear Jacket, I cut the pieces into 2 sections, remembering to do, as I showed you in the video before, a seam allowance. So I've stitched on the bias I'm using, so I'm about to fold it up and attach this like this, making sure I get the right one. There's the arm side, that goes that side, and that goes there. So this will be on the front. So let's get these stitched on and then I'll show you. Okay, so now we are onto this gorgeous rainbow tartan, and I just want to show you I did the same again with separating a piece of the front bodice, but look what I did. When I cut these pieces out, I changed the direction of the tartan on purpose so that when it's put together that will be noticeably different. I'm now going to take the green bias binding and do exactly like I showed you, stitching it onto here first, then overlaying that over the top. So I'm going to do that, and then we'll look at the back yoke. So let's have a look at this amazing yoke. So you will notice there is a pointer here, and so I have changed the back of the Patina blouse to have a different shape yoke, but I have also ensured that the back piece then fits that, because if you don't change the back piece to fit it, it wouldn't look right. Now I have asked myself the question, do I add this green bias binding in or not? I'm going to give it a go. It's going to be a challenge with the point, but also look, I've changed the direction of the checks on the yoke as well. So here we go, we're going to get this binding on using the same technique. I will another time talk to you about how to reshape a yoke, but I've purposely reshaped the yoke for interest. Okay, so now I have joined the front piece to the back piece, and we've got the yoke and the internal yoke and the facing on. It is time to do the ruffled collar around the neck. So I'm going to pre-make the ruffle and try really hard to get it the right length. And I'll show you how I do that. It's probably not a very mathematical traditional way, but there we go. It's a sequin girly creative way. And then I'll show you how I attached it as well. So I have cut a piece of fabric way longer than the neckline and double the width, because I'm going to fold it over as I sew it. So I'm going to try and show you it. I'm going to get it started and then I'll show you. So first of all, with right sides together, I've stitched down this edge so I can turn it through, and it means that the end is nice and neat at the start, so no rough edges. So what I'm doing is keeping the needle down every time I stop, lifting my foot. It's going to be tricky with my left hand, folding the next fold under really hard with my left hand. Under, I then stitch along to about 8mm after the thing. So stitch, 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 set it to finish like that. Lift up the dogs again, foot, fold the next section under and stitch again. Now I'm not doing it absolutely precisely because I kind of like the irregularity of not doing them every single piece the same size, but there is an element of regularity to the way I'm doing it. You could create a set marker or mark them or something, but I like that in the way that the ruffle comes in the end. Let me do some more and then I'll show you. So this fabric is very different from the previous one that I did it on, so it's not going to hold the pleats as well, but it's creating more of a soft ruffle. So I've left this end unfinished because what I'm going to do is put it against the neckline and measure it and see how much more I need to do, and then finish off the edge. And what I'll do again is I'll turn it in to create a neat end like this end here. So let me do that and then we'll fix it on. So there is two elements to fitting this to the neckline. Number one is to pin the ruffle to the right side of the neckline, and then over the top I'm now going to pin the bias binding I'm going to use so that these edges are covered in the end. I'm just going to go and choose one because although I used this satin on the piping, or no I didn't, but I want something softer, that's not nice against my skin, so I'm going to pin that on and then we'll stitch it. So here we go, we've got the 3 layers. So we've got the top, the ruffle, and then this on the back. You can see it's like this. Turn it over here for you like that, all the way round. So now I'm going to stitch that on. Here we have the finished Myosotis dress hacked into a blouse. Although now I'm thinking, I think it would work well as a jacket. I will put a finished picture in for you, but here is the ruffle collar, and you can see here where I've completed the stitching of the bias binding in there to keep it all neat. And if we rotate round, we can, I've added in at the back with the purple bit here. Remember, the Myosotis doesn't have a yoke, so we hacked that in. So here we have the Paola Workwear Jacket made into a blouse or shirt. I am really feeling the idea of making some matching trousers and actually having the most awesome pyjamas. You can see here where I split the front piece into two, and you've got this here, and the pattern is continuing here where I showed the where I cut it. It's not perfect, but it does create a sense of continuity, like a visual line when you're looking, and it can't be perfect because of the seam allowance. But there we go, here we go. So here is where I cut the front bodice, and you can see the green piping there. You can also see where I did it up and over the shoulder, round to the back yoke, which has the V shape that I worked on. That's poking out a bit more, so I'm just going to adjust that now. I've pressed it down a couple of millimetres. Very happy with this. Just got to work out how to finish the sleeves. I will put a finished picture in of me wearing it, and I do need to add buttons, but I am really happy with these extra details. Everyone, I hope you found that useful, and if you did, do let me know. I will do another vlog soon about yokes and shaping yokes and that sort of thing, but I'll catch you soon. Bye.